Has Hasbro's quality finally caught up to the price tag? Hello and welcome to Modern Toy Fair. I'm your host, Mr. Modern Toy Fair, and I'm joined by the man known as Bearded Spice, the man Modern Toy Fair has full custody over, the man Optimus Prime popped and refuses to stop, the Twilight Knight, the Master of Mac, the three-pump chump of taking the show off the rails, Nate. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm just happy that I finally got through all of your new intros without stumbling.
Yeah, lots of claims that I'm a man. I appreciate that.
I'm glad. You know, I don't want you to ever feel emasculated on the show.
I do that on a weekly basis every time I try to work on something or
Are we talking like
not watch foot.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's fair.
I don't watch football. I don't work on my car. I don't.
Oh,
Yeah,
me
I have
either.
a basement full of toys. So
Yeah, man, fuck. Well, I'm glad that at
yeah,
least one of us has a bunch of man in their title because it sure as fuck ain't me.
yeah, I got it in my title. We'll see what goes on from here.
All right, so obviously missing from the bunch today is Jarmar. We had to shift the schedule around because me and Nate are gonna go see Godzilla on Wednesday, and that impedes on us being able to record like we normally would. So me and him are recording the normal podcast today by ourselves, and I this kind of stemmed from a couple things. One, Nate recently got me into the GIJoe Classified line, and two, I picked up the new Spider-Man Marvel Legends figures and was blown away by the quality. So it made me ask, like, has Hasbro finally started stepping up the quality of their action figures to meet the ridiculous price increase that they had a year and a half ago at this point? I can't remember. It's been a wild ride, to say the least, because I have very mixed emotions about it, and I'm kind of curious where you stand.
Well, okay, a couple of things. Because I'm going to get myself in trouble here. And
Ooh.
I tend to get myself in trouble when it comes to these situations. I've been called out many times. I guess I should preface this by saying I know these things are expensive, and but I definitely have been beating this drum for a while now. Now, do I think that 25 and 30 and even some places, sometimes up to even past 30 some dollars for a standard mainline 6-inch action figure from Hasbro is very expensive? I do feel that we are getting an uptick in quality. And I have felt this way for a long time because I have been buying Classified since its inception. And I think Classified is a line that has always had pretty good quality. And when I say quality, I'm not talking necessarily QC issues or things like that, but I'm just talking overall the articulation, the intention of the paint apps, the design, the look of everything, the accessories. And I think Classified is one of those lines that has just continued to knock it out of the park. And yes, they have some leeway there when it comes because it's an in-house property that they don't have, say, for Star Wars or Marvel or something like that. But that's where we see like the added accessories. But figure construction wise, I think that Classified is probably one of the best constructed design 6-inch action figures across the board. I would put it up to any figure with the slight, with the exceptions of, import figures, where we definitely get, a whole nother realm of figure construction, but those are 65
And
on up.
yeah.
So even at its cheapest, they're $35. And and I'll be curious to hear a little bit when it comes to Spider-Man, because I don't have those in hand yet. In fact, all I have seen is MJ and Naked Sandman.
Naked
But
Sandman.
just judging from reviews that I've watched thus far, those head sculpts are better than some of the import companies' head sculpts, or at least in some cases, the pictures that we saw of
Mm-hmm.
intended head sculpts. And yeah, like gone are like even McFarlane stepping it up a little bit on the likeness game, but I think we at one point declared Hasbro as one of, if not the best head sculpts in the business. Jamar, back me up here.
Oh no, there's no one to
No,
back you up. How unfortunate.
but but uh, I think that that's just been the case, especially over the last couple of years when you look at movie licensed lines, with some exceptions. We were just talking about Dungeons and Dragons. We talked about it on the show before. I almost wonder if that is like a cost saver line, because the money is being poured into classified and something like that. So because if you take a classified figure and compare it to a Dungeons and Dragons movie figure, or even those cartoon figures, which I have all of, and I'm so happy to have them, but they're still super shitty compared to the other ones that we do get. So that's my long-winded answer to say yes. I do think that we've gotten an uptick in quality along with the uptick in price. And I have some examples here we can get to at some point, but I'd like to pass it back to you to see what you think.
That's very fair. Yeah, we've built a brand around the Hasbro hate. I mean we had literally a video where we talked about the price hikes that launched us over 1,000 subscribers and into being like eligible for monetization stuff. So like this is the house that Hasbro hate built. And I after today, after this past like week or two, I'm my tune's changing a little bit.
Well, the irony of the Hasbro hate is that I still do buy a lot of Hasbro product. In fact, my hate more comes from just moves that don't make sense, or decisions and things like that I don't care for. Um, but yeah, I still buy not as much, but still quite a bit of Hasbro product, and I'm glad you're coming around a little bit more. And I do think that classified is the place that it starts.
Oh, I 100% agree. Like I've always admired the classified line from afar. For the exact reasons you mentioned. Like the quality of the figures looked amazing. The accessories they came with, just like unmatched by anything else Hasbro is bringing out. And I don't think the other lines are quite at classified level, but the quality at least is getting there. Because like with this most recent Spider-Man No Way Home wave, I have Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Green Goblin. All three of the head sculpts night and day better than any of the import stuff I've seen. Like I've seen reviews for a couple of the import figures from that movie, and one, the facial expressions they chose were terrible. I don't know who was in charge of that, but it was awful. And two, just in general, like these look more accurate to those actors than the import ones do, which that's always been a problem with import figures. Like it's very close but never quite on point. But Hasbro's
Mm-hmm.
always found a way to somehow do worse, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the MCU figures, like some of them just look like they're stunt doubles. Just like McFarlane, for the longest time, 90% of his movie figures looked like the stunt doubles. And yeah, I like the review for the Green Goblin goes up. Well, I guess if you're watching this when it comes out, it went up last week, but for us, it goes up tomorrow morning. And like messing around with that, I normally when I start the review, the like detail section of it is a minute, maybe a minute and a half. I spent 3.5 minutes just looking at the detail of that figure. between like and at least probably a minute of that is the face. Like they really did a great job on it. And my only gripe is still accessories. Like the
Mhm.
quality is getting there, but we're getting less accessories. Like the Spider-Man, for instance, all two of them came in that 3-pack. That was $100.
Mhm.
In the 3-pack, they all had 3 sets of hands that were specifically made for those figures. Why they didn't include all the hands in these releases is beyond me, because you're not going to get more reuse out of those. Like they're made for these figures, so like that's
The only thing I can figure on that is the only thing is that they're throwing a bone to the people who did buy that 3-pack, myself included, that we have something special that is not available in the mainline release.
I mean, I'll give you that, because now I'm debating on if I need to go and hunt these down just so I can have a set of fists for my fucking Spider-Man, or a set of wall crawling hands. Because like Toby, he has those very Toby Maguire. I can't even fucking bend my hand that way he does it. Like
Yeah.
wall crawling hands, and having one in a fist like just doesn't feel right. But of course, now that 3-pack is no longer available, and I sure as hell am not. I'm afraid to look to see what people are asking for it on eBay, because I guarantee people were like, oh, "I've got an
I,
extra set of hands, so I get to charge like
well, I don't
$700."
I don't know that people have necessarily put that together yet, and some people might be trying to offload those because they felt they got
Shafted.
tricked or whatever. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that either. But yeah, I will definitely agree with you on the accessory part in some of the lines. Um, Marvel Legends has definitely been one that seems to be backing away. Um, but again, where is the trade off there? So we're getting better articulation, better use of articulation, hidden joints. And in fact, I just found out today that because I don't really collect it anymore, but the Black Series did away with the thigh cut on
Oh,
their figures because of the way that the drop down hips work. It was no longer necessary for that. So it was like redundant in that aspect. And so they kind of basically dropped it because they didn't need it. So it's
oh,
able
I don't
to,
know how I feel about that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't collect that anymore, so I don't know either. But from what I've heard from people is that it works pretty well. And you don't have a cut there to then, throw off any look, and you still get a similar range of motion. I don't know. Vintage Collection still has the cut, so I'm good with it. Um, but so as you're getting these improvements, they are scaling back. And this is funny to me now that this is the third Spider-Man related wave with no Build-A-Figure.
Yeah, that's also kind of interesting to me. Like I feel like
Yeah,
Sandman would have been just an easy layup build a figure, and
yeah,
yeah, I'm not
yeah.
sure how I feel about that
So
either.
yeah, and so yeah, that was kind of like the first way of getting plastic back, was doing these retro style cards on figures that really didn't need it. That one full Spider-Man wave, the across the Spider-Verse wave, and now these movie ones. No movie figures uh, had been in these retro card style, for Marvel Legends.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like their way of sneaking that in there. It'll be very interesting to see, and this could be a whole nother show, but it would probably take a while. It's going to be interesting to see going forward what they do, because as we talked about in the one episode, link right here, um, the writer's strike and the actor strike has put some things delayed, and now we're only getting Deadpool next year as a Marvel movie, which is going to be even more interesting to see, because from all intents and purposes, they have always maintained that Deadpool 3 would keep its R-rated
Rating.
style. Will Hasbro make figures of this? Because they've previously in the past only made figures for PG-13 rated movies, and I had Corey from Figuratively Speaking yell at me, they did Deadpool 2 figures, and I was like, Once Upon a Deadpool, and he was like, what's that? And I was like, I can't help you if you don't know what that is. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. But so that'll be very interesting to see, and how that's going to work, because we've been seeing the shift away from certain areas of Build-A-Figures, but again, that is a cost saver, and not having a Build-A-Figure in the package at that full $24.99 price point. But what are they going to give us in return? And is it going to be these excellent, head sculpts? Is it going to be this incredible articulation as they've continued to show us, with less and less? Which, again, going back to Classified, they're able to give you more as far as your accessories go, in your regular mainline figure. And then, of all the lines, again, understanding that they have the in-house ownership on it, but they are the only like true deluxe figures that I think are worth it.
Mm-hmm.
When you start talking about the figures that are 40 and $35 to $45, those come with some amazing things that I don't feel cheated when I open it.
That's fair. I do want to backpedal real quick to the R-rated thing again, just because I know someone's going to be typing it up in the comments already. But so a couple things with that. One, they did do the Hasbro Pulse exclusive Logan and Professor X from Logan.
Right. Which was a con exclusive.
Yes. So there are opportunities to do that, but also they could always use the excuse. Every one of these movies at some point gets put on cable television and gets dumbed down to a PG-13 level. So like,
I don't disagree with you, but that has always been Hasbro's stance as far as mainline retail, which is bizarre to me, since they are, they do own Kenner, and Kenner was the king of releasing kids toys, literally toys for kids, based on R-rated movies. Aliens, RoboCop. What am I missing? I'm missing another big one. Terminator 2.
Was there Predator? I can't remember.
Yes, Predator. Yep. So, yeah. So Kenner did it. Police Academy. Only the first movie was R-rated, but still. Weird franchise to make a cartoon and toy line out of. Just very bizarre.
Yeah. Like, which, don't get me wrong, back in the 80s and 90s, it was a much more Wild West world than it is now. But I could still see many avenues that they could do it, either if it's a Pulse exclusive or if they use the excuse, well, it's on FX and PG-13. They can find a way.
But it'll be just interesting to see what they do with it, because again, it is the only MCU film scheduled for next year.
Which will also be interesting, because usually they get concept art so they can try to have it out at least like mildly after or around. So does this mean that we're gonna have a bunch of stuff that was supposed to release next year still release, even though those things have been pushed back?
Since they have this much of a warning, I think so. With the case of, like, I remember, like, one of the biggest ones was Black Widow. They got pushed back, but it got delayed so late in the game. Like, stuff was already on its way. It was headed to stores, that sort of thing. So yeah, and that was a big bummer, because I think it got delayed. It was like a year.
Yeah.
So those figures were gone by the time, long gone by the time the movies came out.
Even the deluxe one was like clearanced out well before the movie came out. So to get back on topic, it pains me to say it, but yeah, I do feel like they are improving. It is a very slow burn for some of the lines. Like, I feel like G.I. Joe has consistently been improving, where I feel like Marvel Legends and Star Wars has definitely been like when you have a puppy and you're trying to teach the puppy not to shit in the house kind of thing. Right. Like, it's very much a, like, it's going to take you a while, but eventually you'll get there.
Yeah. Let me just grab a couple things that I wanted to show. Okay. So just like Star Wars Vintage Collection. So this is a Brock Starsher figure. Now, this was released originally, So this was originally released in the 3 3/4 inch black series, and but this was on a vintage card in 2019. So this was reissued and put on a vintage collection card in 2019. So 4 years ago. But look at the hips. I mean, we're talking just straight. I mean, this is just,
Oh, that's rough.
yeah. So we've got our knee articulation, but it's not great, and we've got ankle articulation, like it's got like ankle movement, but
Mm-hmm.
there's no pivot. It's not a rocker ankle. The elbows are good, and the arms are pretty decent, and the wrists are all right, but those hips and those legs are pretty terrible. And then you take, like, say, like, for instance, one of the newest molds out there, which is the Grand Inquisitor, and it is just phenomenal. I mean, you've got, the hips are right on. I don't know all the lingo necessarily, but they have these ball jointed hips. They've got the articulation in the thigh, like I was talking about. The knees got rocker ankles. The ball joints on the heads. I mean, yeah. So like the difference was this was probably 10, $12, and this is now 15 to 17. So, there is a trade off there. Yeah, we don't necessarily love the idea of paying more, but I mean, look
But
at the
yeah,
difference.
yeah, it is true.
Um, and then let me just do a quick go back even a little bit further. So this is a 6 inch, this isn't even a Marvel Legends. This is a 6 inch Iron Man Mark V from Iron Man 2.
Oh my God, that's
Okay.
atrocious.
Yeah, so this was probably $15. This was whenever the movie came out, so 2000, was that
It's probably
2010 that
less than
Iron
that,
Man 2
honestly,
came out?
with when that came out. Because that was back when Toys R Us was open. I feel like it was maybe 15 at Toys R Us.
Yeah, but I think these were Walmart. These might have been a Walmart exclusive. But yeah, I mean, these hips are terrible. It's very gummy. I don't even really know what to say here. The size is all wrong. And then you've got this Hawkeye, which is much better. It's bigger. This was a few years later. This was probably around $20. But I mean, look at that head sculpt. Yeah, it's Jeremy Renner, I guess.
Ish.
But one, the head is huge. It's still using these weird ball jointed hips that are not good. Um, you know, you could definitely, like, back then we probably would have been like, wow, this looks pretty good. This, you can tell that it smells like Jeremy Renner. Like that's about as close as we're getting.
Smells like him.
And then, yeah, but then, and then you have, like, say, like this, WandaVision Scarlet Witch, which isn't even, which
Accurate.
is a little even older.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, the face sculpt is so much better. The skin tones are better. The design overall, the construction. I mean, just everything there is better. And so, yeah, we're taking these little steps, but I think a lot of people are only looking at that price tag, and I get it. You got a budget for it. It's an extraneous hobby, but nobody says you have to collect 10 lines. I've learned that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get that anymore. I get 4 or 5. I will say I'm a little bit mixed on how I feel about Hasbro's Transformers right now, because a lot of people used to complain that some of the stuff was hollow, in order to cheap things out. Like I've got Bombshell here that I had a couple weeks ago. He's a great looking figure. He looks fantastic. He's a little more solid than the rest. But then you take a look at the back.
Yeah.
Now, does this bother me? No. I'm not going to display the figure like this. It also doesn't affect, the transformation stuff is all in the front anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's definitely been a decrease in quality, I think, over the Transformers on some aspects. But then again, the some of the detail work is really cool, although they have gotten smaller over the years, a little bit. So, they've been like re-releasing a lot of like what would be considered somewhat modern, things from like Armada or some of the other, more recent series, and they're definitely smaller in size than those original releases. So they're definitely scaling down. But that also has to do with this whole War for Cybertron aesthetic that they went with a couple years ago, where these are all in scale with each other loosely. I mean, because, some of the Titans, they're not as big as they should be, all things considered, but they're still pretty big. So,
Wow. I did not know Transformers was having that kind of issue.
yeah, yeah. So there's always trade off.
Yeah. One thing I will say, as far as like, I feel like quality wise, the figures are nicer than say like a Super 7 at this point. Super 7's quality for some of their lines has gone down, and where Hasbro's has gone up. I don't, by no means does that mean Hasbro, you should be charging $50. But there are some misses still. So like one thing about like the Green Goblin
Mm-hmm.
is like he does have a shitload of paint apps. Like they did a great job. There are some spots that probably still could have used a little love. Like for whatever reason, despite the fact that every nook and cranny on his armor that's like cracked or anything like that has paint apps, his belt has zero. Like as far as like there's no buckles painted. Like the only thing painted on it is like the little yellow piece there on the side. Everything else is just brown. So it's like they're like picking and choosing things.
Just looking at that, like that looks. I haven't seen that yet, so I mean, it looks fantastic. How much was that?
That was $50.
So that was 50.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, and that's a lot. Again,
Is.
I'm not saying that that's not a lot of money,
But
but that's a pretty awesome looking thing with a ton of paint apps. It's bigger than most. Should it be closer to 30, 35? I don't know. I don't know the business of it. But I do know that a lot of people need their money too. So, we all have to adjust when it comes to that. But I see the value in that. If we're talking today's prices and today's, designs and looks, I see the value in that. Where there might have been just as much detail in that Spider-Woman figure that was released for Across the Spider-Verse, but I didn't see the value in it because that was a character that was on screen for like 4 seconds, and it's just a big chunk of plastic. Where that it's a lot there, but it's not just one piece. There's a whole dynamic there that I appreciate.
I mean, don't get me wrong. This figure is easily going to be on my top 10 here in a couple weeks when we do the Festivus special. Like they did a stellar job on it. And there are a lot of paint apps. I wish you could see the face on this thing because it looks incredible. Like like there's no denying it's William Dafoe. And it's just at this point it's just like minor gripes. Like I think if this would have been $40, I wouldn't care about those gripes as much. But 50, we're getting into Super 7 range, and while the quality of the figures, like playability wise for Super 7 has gone down, I feel like they still at least make sure everything's painted, all of the little like tiny details are taken care of. So I would like to
And
see
that's
that
still, I mean, and that's
something that they work on.
And that's a much smaller company. I mean, Hasbro is the biggest toy manufacturer in the world, with maybe the possible exception of Bandai, and all their different, sections. So there's a big difference there too that they have to think about. But yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm happy with it. Like it's amazing. Just still some things that they need to improve on, which I'm sure we'll get there with the amount of improvements they've made in just a year's time. I have no doubt that we'll be there. I just wish that we would have been there a little sooner. But yeah, I'm coming around to it. while it sucks that we have to pay more,
Mm-hmm.
I am at least starting to feel like the figures are more worth it than they were before. Because
Mm-hmm.
some of the MCU stuff I had seen before, like She-Hulk, looked amazing. She-Hulk
Mm-hmm.
borderline looked better than the show did. Because the
Mm-hmm.
show's CGI was a little choppy at times.
Yep.
But I, if they, I could look past the paint apps if they just give me more accessories.
Mm-hmm.
If I get some swappable hands or just something to make it feel like my box isn't as empty when I open it. I'll be happy as a clam at this point because the quality's there. I just that's the last little like bump in the road to make me feel like I'm paying getting what I pay for.
Right.
And especially if they're not going to do build a figures. Like if you're not going to build a figures, it's not that much more expensive to give me some hands. God damn it.
Give this man a hand. D.
Ha. But yeah, so that's really where I'm at. Like in the GI Joe stuff, like my only complaint with those is so I did recently get an older one after having only experienced some of the newer ones. I do like the weapons, the older weapons better because they were a
Yeah.
harder plastic. I feel like the soft plastic, no matter what you do when it comes out of the package, it's warped. It looks like a Bugs Bunny
Yeah.
cartoon, like they bent the barrel to try to shoot the person that's firing the gun and stuff like that. Like that bothers me quite a bit. Because originally I was just like, oh, well, I guess I'm gonna have to like the GI Joe guns are okay. I guess I'll have to stick with Valaverse for that. And then I got an older figure. I'm like, oh shit, no, they used to be really good. What happened? And you explained
What
that
figure
like,
did you get?
I got the Sergeant Stalker.
Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I know like the vintage collection has been fighting the gummy weapons thing for quite some time, and I think the answer that was always given for that was safety reasons. And even though, I mean,
I mean, it's still
you
gonna hurt
know,
when you poop it out.
9 times out of 10, a kid is not getting this, an adult is, but at the same time, they're being sold in a store along with toys. You have to show. But again, I just want to show this one off because of all the junk he comes with,
That
and
looks
he's
fucking
just
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just he's got the backpack and the hoses and the attachments, and then he's also got the handkerchief and the ammo belt and the overlay and all the. I mean, just so. I mean, it's so great. I mean, and the posing is really great with these. And again, this is your average mainline retail release. I mean, I'm not going to say average because these are obviously we've been talking about how great they are,
Mm.
and where like something like Dungeons and Dragons is not. But I mean, GI Joe is a viable brand again. No one's more surprised than that than me, the guy who's been hanging on for 40 years with it on and off. But it's amazing to see, and these are so great. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to beat this drum. These are the figures that I'm willing to pay for if you're going to give me more stuff. I mean, um, the tripwire that I got a couple weeks ago was decked. I mean, I never gave a shit about tripwire, but that's a super fun figure. Same with scrap iron. Scrap iron was never on my list of of favorite Cobra characters, but coming with that whole remote missile system and the effects pieces. I mean, the effects pieces alone, I don't understand how Classified is able to give us so much more effects pieces, and then like Marvel Legends, we get the same ones over and over again. We get the same, Iron Man, blastings, and we get these. I was just singing the praises of this figure, but at the same time, how many of these little wishy-washy spell casting
Listen,
pieces have
I
we
like the
gotten?
wishy-washy spellcasting pieces.
I like them too, but like, how many times have we gotten them?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
you can't give us something else, you
or at least
know?
change up the
Uh,
way that they look, something like some sort of update
right.
to it.
Yeah. I mean, GI Joe, they're still missiles blasting out of stuff, but they're giving us different ways to do it. And the same with like the gun effects and things. We at least have, I think, 5 or 6 different ones at this point. So Star Wars doesn't really give anything like that. So Black Series, and I think Black Series is probably the one that probably does hurt the most because you're getting almost no accessories in those. Granted, there's a lot of new, tooling and figure manufacturing there, but excuse me, there's even less accessories to be had in Star Wars. But again, the detail is incredible.
Yeah, God, that figure looks so good. Uh, I, I think, yeah, I think I'm gonna close out on saying that I do feel like Hasbro is catching up to their price point, and
Yeah,
I'm glad because it's nice to be able to buy something other than imports all the time because that gets fucking expensive. Like, don't get me wrong, the figures are fantastic, but damn,
right.
it's rough on the wallet. And luckily, we get even less of those per year than we do Hasbro stuff. But after the Spider-Man wave and the GI Joe Classified stuff, like now that I've popped that cherry, I'm I'm here for it. Like we're gonna probably get a lot of hate for this one, but you know what? I don't care. I've got 3 really cool Spider-Man and a Green Goblin, so suck it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Do you have any final thoughts before we close out?
I would just say, if you've been away from Hasbro for a while, or have been mad about the prices and things like that, I would say, jump on some of these sales that are happening right
Mm,
now. Check some of these figures out. I absolutely bought, two starting lineup figures that I had no intention of doing, but I got them at a cheap price because I wanted to check them out. And, those are amazing as well. We have been talking those up. No, they weren't worth
oh,
$50.
not at
They
all.
weren't
No.
worth $50.
30,
But I would
yes.
love to, yeah. And I would love to see, more of like some of the things that they learned around the figure construction around starting lineup into some of the other things. And that would be pretty amazing, I mean, because those are super realistic because they're real people. Some kind of, uh, mixing of that with the Dungeons and Dragons could have been way cooler, than what we got.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, though, that was a whole thing, and maybe they didn't have a lot of high hopes for it. I don't know, but when you churn out a shitty product, you get shitty results. So I don't know. But then the same could be said for starting lineup because it wasn't a shitty product, but we got super shitty results. So I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's not any
It
rhyme or
wouldn't be the
reason to
first time.
it. So yeah, let us know in the comments below what your thoughts and feelings are. Do you feel like Hasbro's improved to match what we're paying, or are you still on the bandwagon of it's all overpriced garbage and they should feel bad? Let us know. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out and gets you much toy-related content in your feed. We've got the reviews, how to pose videos, the weekly live stream, weekly podcast, and the weekly toy hunt. You can check us out Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Modern Toy Fair. You can check us out if you're already a fan of the channel and want to help support us at patreon.com/Modern Toy Fair. Link in the description below. We've got a bunch of different tiers of different rewards. You can get input for each of the episodes of the podcast. You can submit fake podcasts for Nate to read at the end of the show. You can get the podcast and the toy hunt early, and even get physical prints of the photos I take. There's also a couple tiers that have some free trials, so you can try it for 7 days before you commit to anything. So once again, if we could check that out, we'd greatly appreciate it. You can head over to tpublic.com/Modern Toy Fair. A bunch of different shirts and other merch with our logos and inside jokes on them. Link in the description for that as well. And you can check Jarmar out, even though he's not here, over at TikTok at Jarmar_games. Nate, what you got for us?
Well, I have a new podcast, but I got to be honest, I don't know which one I haven't talked about because, I've made all these podcasts. So which one haven't I talked about yet?
I don't know. I just screenshot them and send them to you. I mean, there's a Thanksgiving one, but that one was submitted like way past when we would have recorded for Thanksgiving. But
I
that's
thought we did that one last weekend
did we?
or last week.
I don't remember. That was a week ago, and that was an entire
Yeah.
episode that I have to somehow how go through and fix the audio because apparently I was like way lower than you guys, and even for the live streaming, no one said anything. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna wait on this week for any new podcasts because I don't want to like annoy anybody and repeat the same one over and over again.
That's very fair. That's the safe answer to take. Well, on that note, hopefully we'll see you next week. Same toy time, same Toy Fair channel. Thank you for watching.
To do it now.
All right. A huge thank you to our Patreon members. Is that what it is? Are they members? Or are they followers? Sukma Taint, Kibby, Jason Millar, Tavin Hernandez, Aaron Samples, the 45th Lyric, and last but not least, Christopher.